I'm Caroline Jane, the Resilience Guide, and this is a masterclass on reflective practice. This term might be new to some of you, or some of you maybe have heard of this and use it in your day-to-day work. It's part of a series of masterclasses that I'm doing that's called Holding the Line, Delivering Under Pressure. And the 2026 series is really focused mainly on public sector, but it can also be useful for other people who are working under pressure. It's kind of tailor-made to the public sector because that's mainly who my clients have been, but more and more my work does resonate with the private sector as well, in particular with the private sector that may be counsellors or therapists or people that hold safe space for other people. So if reflective practice is new to you, it might be something that you might want to include in your practice. Just to give you an idea, next month's masterclass is going to be around how you cope with being hated and goaded and abused. Lovely subject, but it's something in my experience doesn't really get taught very much. Kind of how you cope with being filmed by aggressive people when you're doing your job. It's something that I certainly, when I worked in policing, I saw quite a lot. So reflective practice is used across lots of different organisations. I mentioned policing. It's often paired with the world of conduct and complaint issues. And this can be quite problematic because it's viewed negatively. In the arts sector, it's used in terms of evaluating funded projects often. And again, some people shy away from the scrutiny. Whereas in other sectors like the healthcare sector, social work, in education, for example, it's very much kind of embedded in their practice, and it's something that people do and understand and know that it's healthy. I'm quite curious that both in policing and the arts, sometimes there is a slightly negative association with it. And I wonder if it's because if you work in those particular industries, you're quite defensive about what you do and that you feel that instinctively people should know that your work has value and that you shouldn't need to prove it or evaluate or reflect. So that's something that is interesting. And if you're watching this and you're from another sector and you're watching this on YouTube on the replay, then by all means just share in the comments your experience of reflective practice. I haven't had much experience of social care, but I know from people, from family members actually, who are social workers, how it is very much part of everything that you do. So in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to explain the benefits, what to include, how to do it. Finally, I'm going to offer you a template. I will put it on screen. It's a one-page template, unlike the template provided by the College of Policing, which I think was 12 pages long. So it's a one-page template, and I will email this to everyone who has joined the live Zoom session or said they're going to join the live Zoom session. But I will also put a link to it where this appears in YouTube so that you can download it. But I will go through this at the end. So in policing, I just want to be absolutely clear. When I worked as head of feedback in a police force, reflective practice is different from reflective practice review process. Confusingly, I desperately wanted to make them called different things. So reflective practice is like an ongoing personal and professional development method of learning from daily experiences to improve performance. That's not my words, that's the College of Policing's word. The IOPC describe RPRP, reflective practice review process, as a formal regulated mechanism that was introduced in 2020 for managing practice requiring improvement. So if through a complaint or conduct issue they notice that you require improvement, it focuses on learning rather than on blame. So you can already see that there's a bit of a problem because one of the main things about being reflective is being open, isn't it? So if it's associated with conduct and someone else has identified a need for improvement, then you're automatically going to be a bit defensive and there's a massive obstacle there. Um, so as I mentioned, in social work, it's embedded in day-to-day practice, but in policing, and I know lots of you were watching this will be from that sector, it said that you have to be willing to continually assess your own practice. So it relies on you, your willingness rather than it being embedded. So I think it's quite healthy to take a step back and understand that reflective practice in itself is a good, healthy practice, and that it's practice that's broadly spread over teaching, healthcare, social care, the public sector, the cultural sector, and not get too bound up in the words what it means culturally to your organisation. It's just a continual cycle of experiencing, reflecting, and then learning. And that learning professionally is learning to improve, right? So that you're in an environment of continual improvement. But personally, if we go a little bit deeper into reflective practice and look at how we can benefit as individuals, I hold up reflective practice as a tool within my cycle, which starts with awareness, moves to understanding, and then to growth. So I think we can really grow from our experiences, but we have to have an awareness and understanding of them first. So in short, reflective practice is basically a bridge between thinking and doing. So it's the critical thinking bridge between thinking and doing. So what are the benefits of reflective practice? Obviously, you're going to grow, learn, and improve. The College of Policing say it increases your awareness, emotional intelligence, your decision-making ability. It improves your working relationships, and it means you better cope with stress. So we'll say a little bit about that because that's really in the resilience world that I operate in. That's what I'm interested in too, and is this a tool that we can use to better cope with stress? So I don't want you to overthink it. Obviously, reflective practice involves self and self-reflection, involves thinking about what went well, what didn't go well. Just kind of think of it as a bit of a debrief after something has happened. And in my work, my trauma-informed work as a therapist and healer, I know that if we experience trauma, for example, a traumatic event, we naturally fall into a debrief mode. So I don't know if ever you've had something dramatic happen. It doesn't have to be frightening, but something dramatic has happened in your life. I don't know, or you witness something dramatic happening, a robbery at a bank. You're stood outside and the robbers come out in balaclavas and they run across and jump in a car and drive away. We will naturally be talking about this for a long time. We'll be telling our friends, we'll definitely be talking about other people that witnessed it. The world can actually kind of stop whilst everyone chats. Can you believe what just happened? They will go through it, you'll describe the people, and what's happening there is we're naturally processing trauma. So we do have an instinct to debrief after something has happened. It's a kind of a natural thing that we do. And it's because our brains neurologically, we're making sense of it and we're looking for learnings and patterns and things that can keep us safe in the future. I did notice during my time in policing, less and less were debriefs happening, which is very sad, even in more serious events. So we might want to reflect after an event or an incident like I've just described. We might want to reflect after a project comes to an end, or midway through a project, or a campaign, or an assignment. I know that the education sector use this with students and encourage reflective practice after an assignment. You might want to think of taking a reflective practice approach if you get a complaint, for example. And I will be doing a separate masterclass on complaint handling and complaint management because I think this is an important area that lots of people get wrong. I think a complaint about your service, even as an individual and as an organisation, is an absolute gift because it's an opportunity to reflect, to look at objectively when or if something has gone wrong. And it's an opportunity to make that good if possible. Um, so you also might want to take a reflective practice approach. The flip side, when you get a compliment, certainly in the British culture, if someone says you did a good job or thank you very much, we kind of leave it at that, get a bit bashful and say, oh, or it was nothing, or I was just doing my job. But actually, when someone thanks us for a good job, we can learn as much from that as we can from a complaint. We can learn best practice, we learn what good looks like, all those kind of things. So complaints and compliments, definitely important. You can also use reflective practice as part of quality control. So when I first started working in my last job in policing, people were not really, there was not a lot of performance, people understanding the performance of people. So they were just on this treadmill of work, one thing after another, one case, then the next case, and the next case, resolved, done, put away. Not much learning from it, not much reflection at all. So once a month, I used to ask the team I managed to, I would choose a case completely blindly and tell them what case I had picked. And I've said, look, we're going to go deep into this case. I'm going to look at, it was a closed case. So I'm going to look at the quality of your writing, the quality of your recording, your decision making, everything about that case. But I want you to do it first. I'm not going to do it to you. And I think this is one of the main issues, especially around when reflective practice is around anything to do with conduct or discipline, is that people won't be reflective if they feel someone else is judging them. So I used to ask my team members to pick a case and then reflect. We'd sit down together and usually they would tear a strip out of themselves and they would point out everything they'd done wrong and could do better next time. And I used to have to encourage them because I'd probably have a list of everything they'd done really well. The truth lay somewhere in between. But it was quite a healthy exercise because it helped people foster that psychological safe space where they can be self-critical, but without it being emotional. They can be generally look for the learnings. So I think as a sort of quality control or to understand performance, doing dip sampling in that way can be really useful. And you might want to use it as well for reviewing your goals. You might do this already if you set goals and you set a certain amount of time that you want to achieve them. And when you review them, you can take a reflective practice approach. I think the main tip for me would be do it regularly, get in the habit. It's practice because it's a cycle. It's a behavior. So you might want to reflect at the end of a shift or a set of shifts or weekly. What have I done well this week? I am somebody who likes lists and likes achieving things, and I have to actually work on that. And what I have to work on is also pausing and recognizing what I have achieved. I tend to achieve something and move straight on to the next thing, rather than pausing, reflecting, and learning from that achievement. So if you get in a habit you diarize your reflective practice, then that's really helpful. So, what should reflective practice consist of? Well, it should consist always of the bigger picture. So I think the focus should be away from the kind of emotional, away from the really small detail, and look at the bigger picture. Almost kind of reflect on whatever it is you're reflecting on neutrally, as if you're someone else viewing what's happened. And always have a balance of good and bad. As I mentioned, you can't just always focus on everything you did wrong. You can learn very much from things that you've done right. Having a balanced approach also combats any bad self-talk or negativity. Always, I found certainly in policing that people could be very defensive if anyone else raised a concern, but on the flip side of that, is they used to beat themselves up about not making the right decisions an awful lot. A lot of energy was wasted on that. When in actual fact, um, every day in the life of a police officer, they've done a whole wealth of good things, and it's worth noticing that. Um, Being honest is really important. So watch out for whether you are being completely objective, because you might find yourself succumbing to kind of professional bias, or you might, I think the best example of honesty is kind of not acknowledging some of the good things, actually. That's my experience. And being open, you can't really be reflective if you're not completely open. Being open also involves listening to all the key people in the story. Whatever you're talking about, whether it's an event, whether it's end of a project, whether it's an ongoing reflection, you need to make sure that it's not just your voice, that you have other people, other key players in the story. And I think someone who's watching this was saying earlier that their problem is that they work alone, and there is no one to reflect with, and that can be a real obstacle. And there are some structured ways that you can cope with that. Having a structure is important, but trying to invite as many people to give you feedback as possible is gold, really. Um, Being structured is important, not just sitting down having a think, and that's where my little template might help you. It's just a starting point. You don't need to actually use it, stick to it. Once you have it, feel free to cut and paste and edit it to fit your work and your life and what you do. And focus on learning. Always focus on learning, not criticism. So how you might do this, so if you do work alone, journaling is very good. There's a lot of evidence, neuroscience, to suggest that it's one of the most effective ways to cope with, for example, if your mind is very chattery and you sit down to think by yourself about the thing that you're reflecting on, and your mind is really chattering at 100 miles an hour, then you can quiet and slow your mind down by putting pen to paper, journaling with a pen in your hand and starting to write, to just write anything at all, like tease it out of you, and then things will begin to emerge. So journaling is a really good way of getting out the learnings from your experience. Audio recordings, more and more, I don't know about you, but more and more people are sending me voice notes, either on WhatsApp or, certainly my children, rather than actually speak to me, they'll send me a little 30-second voice note. So, but that might be useful for if you're asking for feedback from other people, for example. You don't necessarily, everyone's drowning in emails, aren't they, and messages. So You might not want to add to that burden just to lighten the load. You could say, just drop me a voicemail or a voice note and tell me what your reflections are. So audio recordings can be quite good. You can record your own voice as well. So sometimes you might find yourself reflecting on something at an odd time of day or night. So it's not a bad idea to just record that thought. Um, if you're not somebody particularly who likes to write and journal. Focus groups is another way. If you are able to set up a focus group, particularly at the end of a project, this is really useful. Or if you're debriefing from a big, you know, incident, then setting up a group of people that can, bounce thoughts off each other, and they might see things from a different point of view. I know that somebody watching was talking about setting up a reflective practice support group. That's an absolutely great idea, because sometimes just talking to yourself in your own head is not enough. So you could have critical friends that, even if they might not work in your industry or, have different life experiences for you, they might ask questions or provide insight that you hadn't thought of. So I second that idea. I think that's brilliant. Um, Also, as I mentioned, when I was a line manager, supervision, mentoring, just make it part of your monthly job chats or your interactions with people that you lead and manage. And always let the subject lead on their reflective practice. Don't do it for them. Don't be tempted to pass judgment. Just allow them, when they've finished, when they finish saying what they think about something, then you can come in. You can disagree with them if you like. You can support them. You can offer more positive feedback, or you can raise things. You're in a psychologically safe environment. You can raise things that they missed, and they're already in a place of reflection, so it will be received well. So having it part of that supervision. Um, Discussing your experiences with peers, we do it anyway. We do it naturally. We do it instinctively. It will happen on the things that are important. Um, Reviewing any evidence, case files, footage, listening back to calls, self-audit. So for me, for example, if I want to reflect on how I've done, I might listen back, if I can bear to listen to my own voice, to this recording. And then I'll be reflecting on, how well I did against a set of criteria that I may have already set. If you record your therapy sessions, if you're a therapist and you record your therapy sessions, I've just discovered that Zoom AI transcribes things. So you can actually, your therapy session can be transcribed and you can go over that and read it. So those are all really useful tools. If you have, if you're a police officer, you have body worn footage, you can rewatch that. If you are a call handler in a call center, you can re-listen to your calls. So there's lots of ways that technology can help you kind of self-audit. There are formal ways that you can go beyond the one page reflective practice, and maybe your organization has sort of report writing as part of reflective practice. But I'm going to move on now to this form, and I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you so you can see it, because it's too small if I just hold it up. Let's have a look. Here's a reflective practice template for you. So basically, again, you can see awareness, understanding, and growth. Those are the three areas through that's part of the reflective practice journey. So awareness is the first section. What happened? So think about the context, the background for the event, incident, activity, project, whatever it is, therapy session, whatever it is that you are reflecting on. Um, think about what you were trying to achieve. Was there a plan, or did something just happen and you responded to it? There might be some learnings around there already. What was your specific role in this? What actions did you take? Were any specific behaviors or approaches that I took? And what did you base the actions on? So basically, this is just what happened. What were the consequences of what you did um, as a result of the incident or whatever it is that you're reviewing? Then here's the understanding bit. What went well and what didn't go well? What went really well or just well? Were there any surprising or unintended positives that emerged? Notice I led on the positives, what will be going well. And then what did you find more stimulating or rewarding, or were there certain aspects of it that were really easy? And then what didn't go so well? Um, and how much of this was surprise or out of your control? So things can go badly, but it can be completely out of your control. Um, And what I want you to also observe with your reflective practice on a deeper level, more personal level, what was it that presented the most challenge? What was the most difficult? What was unpleasant? What did you move away from instead of moving forward to? And was there anything that you could have been better prepared for, better trained for? Um, Important one, number 8. Who have I consulted about what went well or didn't go well? So this is quite a big section here, and hopefully you're not just inside your own head. You are, as I said, speaking to or engaging with everybody who played a role in that story, whatever the story was. So if you're a therapist working one to one, as I do often, I need to ask the person who's received my therapy what went well and what didn't go so well. I can't just decide that myself, right? I can't just decide that myself. Number 9 is also important. How did you feel about it? I don't want reflective practice to be this. Whilst I've said I want you to be neutral and be an observer and be unemotional, I want you to neutrally observe and look back about how you felt about it. How is it making you feel? Really connect with that. And does this present any questions that you need to ask yourself? What does it say about your role in this and the decisions and the approach I took? What conclusions can you draw? And what could you have done better or differently? That's really important. What can you do better or differently? And finally, this is where the growth lives. How does this inform the next time this happens? Okay. How does what's happened inform you going forwards? What are the most important things that you've learnt? And how will you apply what you've learnt? And what are the broader issues that need to be considered for future actions to be successful? Um, and what are the consequences of taking these actions? And then have a look at risk mitigation um, in case that happens again. I hope that's clear. I'm going to stop sharing now. Um, yeah, so that's my quick run through in 20 minutes of reflective practice. And if you have any other thoughts on what reflective practice is and what should be included, then by all means chip in. Um, and if you don't have any thoughts of what reflective practice is, that's absolutely fine. Um, you can leave comments or where this appears, which will probably be YouTube, but it potentially will also be on one of my training platforms. Feel free to leave comments. I will always respond to them. I'm interested in what you think. I'm interested in your experiences and how you reflect on what things that you've done and your work. And I'm really interested in what industry you work in. So please share that. And with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some of the other things that I'm involved in. at the Jane Resilience Academy. My main signature training is my resilient leadership course called the Unbreakable Path, which is about a 30-hour long program. But I also have a free program called Leadership in Across Challenging Environments, which again is made very specifically for people who hold space for others, who work often in the public sector, but they work in a quite a volatile, stressful, high stress environment. So that short free course, which is about 3 hours long in total, is available if you want to get in touch. You know my details; they'll be included on this wherever this video is posted. Um, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, happy reflecting. I hope you enjoy it because it actually is quite fun. And I will see you again soon for the next masterclass.